So I'm here to spill the beans on the top 3 things that you need to handle before you move to the Mile High City. And coming from San Diego, there's so many things I wish I knew before I moved over to Denver. So coming from sea level to the Mile High City, perhaps that is an indication of what I'm going to be talking about here. So buckle up, I'm about to give you the unfiltered truth of what it's like living here in Denver. And as a licensed broker and realtor here in Denver, I learned a lot during my stay here, and not just from my own experiences, but from my friends and clients as well. So here we go into the top 3 things you need to handle before you move to Denver, the Mile High City. And of course, if you already live here, let me know in the comments below what you think I should have put in my list, and maybe you might deem as a higher priority than what I've listed here below. And number 1 on the list of things you need to handle before you move to Denver is the bipolar weather. The weather has just been so unpredictable, and at the time of this filming, from May to about June of 2023, we've just been getting some really clear skies in the morning all the way until like 12 or 1 p.m. And then all of a sudden these thunderstorms, hailstorms, and even rain just comes in for like an hour or two. And I am not kidding you, the weather has more swings in it than a community playground. Although we are expected to get into the 90s in July, so I'm pretty stoked about that. Now, I did mention hailstorms, and that is something to really consider here, especially when you have home insurance or auto insurance. Hailstorms can get crazy here. And most of the time, hail sizes are about like a 1/4 inch in diameter, but sometimes they could get like golf ball size, like an inch in diameter, and that is not fun for your roof or your car. So to understand what hail really is, and because it only happens in the summertime, you're like, wait, how do ice balls form in the summertime? Well, what happens is that the warm air suspends these water droplets and keeps it in the cloud. So it just constantly stays in the cloud in the freezing temperatures. And as it spins around, more water droplets accumulate on that frozen ball. So eventually, if there's enough weight to it, it falls to the ground in the form of hail. And like I said, with the hailstorms only coming in during the summertime, it's all because of that warm updraft keeping all those water droplets in the clouds that are in the freezing temperatures. Now, the opposite case might happen during the wintertime, and I've definitely seen it over the past several winters of me living here. The changing weather can be a blessing in the wintertime. So sometimes you might get snow for the next 2 days or something like that. But then on the 3rd day, the sun just beats down on the ground and it melts all the snow and ice on the roads, making it much easier to drive. And that is just within the city. So something to really consider is that when you're going over to the mountains for, let's say, camping or snowshoeing or whatever it might be, I would highly consider to layer up and just bring jackets or scarves or something like that, because the weather just changes so much more frequently at that elevation in the mountains. So with the storms rolling in super quick, I would say either get started on your hike really early in the morning, because sometimes they come in during the afternoon, like around 12 to 4 p.m. But I would say if you got a really long 14er, just be well prepared for those storms rolling in the afternoon. I would say try to get home as soon as possible. So like I said, make sure you layer up and just prepare for almost any type of weather here, because you know what they say, if you don't like the weather in Colorado, just wait 30 minutes. The second thing that I would strongly consider you get a good handle on is the elevation here in Denver. So Denver is known as the Mile High City. So that's 5,280 feet above sea level. And winds can pick up to like 30 to 40 miles per hour depending on the time of year. And also there's not much oxygen here at the Mile High City. So you're gonna be struggling with stairs, right? I know I did, especially coming from San Diego, where you're maybe like 50 feet above sea level. But when you're here 5,280 feet above sea level, even going upstairs can be a chore or even a sport. Although some people really enjoy the lack of oxygen here, like Olympic athletes or people that are trying to train for a big race in their hometown or wherever it might be. We have a lot of Olympians here. There's actually a training facility over in Colorado Springs for the Olympics. So a lot of people that are trying to make time or just get their body used to the lower oxygen means that they can do really well in their races at a lower elevation. And with it being so dry, I would highly suggest you just always carry a water bottle with you, because dehydration is real here. With your body exerting so much more energy, it requires more water, so just stay hydrated in that sense. But also on the outside, let's say with chapped lips or dry skin, I always have a chapstick and just lotion with me. And definitely take some sunscreen with you because you're a little bit closer to the sun, which means there's not much filtering happening before the sun hits you. And if you love baking, like cookies or cakes or something like that, elevation does play a part in the whole composition of it. The air pressure is much lower here, so liquids, let's say like eggs or milk or water, they evaporate more quickly in the substance or in the baked good that you're trying to make. So a common theme here is that make sure you add a little bit more sugar or flour along the way to accommodate for that air pressure difference. And if you're baking bread, the lower pressure means that gases also expand much more within bread. So it doesn't take as long for dough to leaven up and rise. So in order to combat that, I would highly suggest you put in a little bit more baking soda or baking powder into your mix in order for it to rise much more slowly and have that composition that you like. I'm not much of a baker myself or much of a scientist, but definitely Google it and I'm sure you could find some answers on there. And with the elevation, the air is thinner here, right? So I think the home run derby over at Coors Field should happen a lot more often. A lot more home runs happen, I think statistically happen at Coors Field, just because the air is so much thinner here in Denver. So it's like less friction, the ball just sails much farther and faster, thus meaning more home runs and everyone could have a better time, honestly. And the number 3 thing that you should definitely get a handle on before you actually move to Denver is driving in the snow and traffic in general here. I mentioned in a previous video that we got a wide sort of drivers here. Let's say with Californians driving above the speed limits, Midwesterners being way too nice on the road, and let's say Texans just swerving in and out of traffic with their big old trucks. And when you combine all of that with people who have no idea how to drive in the snow or in the mountains, you are going to have a stressful time. And when you combine that with people who have not driven through snow before or haven't driven through the mountains before, you are bound to hit traffic. If you have a rear wheel drive, let's say like a regular compact car that doesn't have front wheel or all-wheel drive, I think you're going to have a bad time as well. I think that's why also Subarus are like the car of Colorado, because all of them are built standard, except for like, I think one model. All of them are built standard for all-wheel drive. So do yourself a favor. It doesn't matter what kind of car you get. I feel like a 4-wheel drive or all-wheel drive is just necessary here in Colorado. And so wintertime is not the only season that people want to head out to the mountains. You got mountain bikers, you got hikers, and everyone in between. So Fridays are often the most congested day to get to the mountains. And when everyone is trying to get to the mountains, let's say the 6 West or the 70 West, that traffic just builds up and keeps going all the way into Denver. The western cities like Golden, North Lakewood, Arvada, Wheat Ridge, they all get compounded with traffic just because everyone's trying to get up to the mountains. So in order for you to have a much better commute over to the mountains, I would say a couple of things here, 3 things. Get a good night's rest, be prepared for your trip, and also look at the conditions of the roads, any closures or traffic jams along the way. So my favorite tool for that would be cotrip.org. Definitely go check that out because they have live cameras of what's going on the I-70, any closures and things like that. So I use it pretty regularly if I were to go up to the mountains. I will say that there was a time a couple of years back where Glenwood Springs had these massive landslides, and I wanted to go there for those hot springs and hot tubs and all that good stuff. But with the landslides there was no way I could get around that. And I honestly think cotrip.org was a huge contributor to me being fully aware of what was happening in the valley there. So that's pretty much my 3, and it was super hard to come up with just these 3 because there was some other things that popped up, and I asked a whole bunch of other people what they thought the top 3 things that other people needed to handle before they started moving to Denver, and one of them was like dog-centric community, which it definitely is. There's a lot of bars, a lot of breweries that accommodate for your fur pet, or your fur family, your fur baby, if you will. Another one is the lively beer scene here. I mean, beer is everywhere here, always on tap, and there's just always craft beer around each corner. And then that 3rd thing that I would mention is like Denver International Airport. In itself is kind of a weird airport, but it is massive. It is the largest airport in the Western Hemisphere and the 2nd largest in the world. I think that's just more by space rather than traffic or the amount of people coming in, but nonetheless, It is massive, and in order for you to get from your baggage to the terminals, you have to take a tram to get to your terminals. It's pretty wild. So I didn't really consider those like real deal breakers here. I think the 3 that I mentioned, from the elevation to traffic, those were the things that really I wish I knew beforehand. So let me know in the comments below if that's, exactly what you're looking for, or if you could think of anything else in your trip or in your stay here in Denver. What would you put as the main things people need to know about before they move to Denver? And of course, it's just better to just experience it for yourself, right? I mean, don't just take my word for it. Come out here, spend a full weekend, and it is beautiful this time of year in Colorado. So if you wanted to hang out and maybe check out some of my favorite restaurants, which I believe I will be coming out soon or have already come out with that video of my favorite restaurants, food halls, whatever it might be, shoot me a call, text, email, smoke signal, if you will. My contact information is down in the description below. Really excited to just meet you in person, and I'd love to host you here. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. I'm a licensed broker here, and let me know if you have any questions.